We're joined now by Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School and the author of Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, thank you so much for being here. I always love your expert opinion. We have a jury, and we have little information about these people that are on the jury. Do you feel, with that limited knowledge that we have of them, that Trump will get a fair trial?
No, I don't. I think the jury is not a good one for Trump. It's probably as good as you can get out of a jury pool of 85% voters against Trump. But it's not a good jury. It's a typical group of New Yorkers. You might want to have them to dinner. You might want to move into their neighborhood. But if you want a fair trial for Donald Trump, you move to Rockland County or you move to Staten Island, but you don't have it in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. The lawyers did as good as they could do with this jury pool, but too many of them get their news from the New York Times and from CNN and from other media. I don't trust this jury to give a fair trial. The other problem is the jury only determines facts, and the real problem with this case is the law. There's just no crime here. The prosecutors just made up a crime. They took a state misdemeanor that was barred by the statute of limitations and turned it into a felony by invoking an unnamed federal statute that they have no jurisdiction over. So jurors have no power over the law. There are two lawyers, at least, on the jury, so maybe they will engage in some kind of legal analysis. But in general, all the jury does is determine the credibility of Cohen, the credibility of Daniels, and those are narrow issues. So this has all the prescriptions for a very, very unfair trial, a quick, likely conviction, and then probably an appellate reversal. But after the election, look, nothing is completely predictable when it comes to 12 jurors. Right. But wouldn't be optimistic if I were Donald Trump.
And he only needs one that doesn't think that he's guilty of this. But the gag order is already an issue in this case. The George Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, he filed a motion to hold Trump in contempt of court for these social media posts. He had 7 of them that he retweeted there on Truth Social. But is the DA hoping that Trump is going to break these gag orders going forward, knowing that he can threaten to throw him in jail?
Yeah, it's a game back and forth. The gag order is unconstitutional. The First Amendment abhors prior restraint. This is prior restraint, and it goes too far. Covering witnesses. You're entitled to criticize a witness in public. You're entitled to criticize the judge's daughter, who may be making money every time the judge rules in favor of the prosecution. So that's unconstitutional. Also, when you said previously that the law requires Trump to be at trial, no, it doesn't. The law has an exception. The law permits the judge to rule that he can leave the court on any given day and waive his right. But under the law, the prosecution has to consent, and that's unconstitutional. You can't have one side to an adversary process having control over the rights of the defendant. The defendant has the right to be there, clearly, but he also has the right not to be there if he chooses to. And the state can't interfere with that right unilaterally. So there are lots of questionable constitutional issues in this case, but the jury doesn't get to decide those. The jury gets to decide only factual issues.
That's right. Opening statements set for Monday. What are you expecting from both sides?
Well, I expect the prosecution to try to lay out a very simple case, saying that the reason that he refused to disclose the hush money was to help him win the election. And the prosecution will say, no, there were multiple reasons for him not wanting the payment to a former porn star to be disclosed, to protect his wife, to protect his business, to protect his children. Trump gets way the better of that argument. And that's the real hope for an acquittal or a hung jury, that the jurors will understand that the main purpose of paying the hush money and not disclosing it, and whoever discloses hush money, why would you pay it if you had to disclose it? The main reason for not disclosing the hush money was to protect his business, to avoid embarrassment to his wife and his children.
Just real quickly, Professor, I want to ask you one question here. This was news over the weekend. Former head of the January 6th committee, Congressman Benny Thompson, he wants to strip Trump of his Secret Service protection that he gets, and that's if he's convicted of this crime. So he would not have Secret Service if he's behind bars. What do you make of this?
Well, that's ridiculous. That means that they want him killed because he's obviously a target. We live in an age where everybody is in danger. Look, Bobby Kennedy ought to be getting Secret Service protection, but certainly Donald Trump needs to get Secret Service protection. Look, he's not going to jail. But if he goes to jail, obviously, the law requires Secret Service protection. We had a presidential candidate once running from prison. He got over 1 million votes. That's not going to happen here. The judge is going to bluff and fine and threaten, but he's not going to throw Donald Trump in jail. That would be a guaranteed victory. It would even get people like me, perhaps, to vote for him if he would throw him in jail on an unconstitutional charge. So I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Always a pleasure. Love having you on. Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you so much.